Hello, Ninth Age community, and hello, YouTube. This is Charles with Evershade Gaming, and I'm bringing you another Ninth Age battle report. So I got this game in this week against Mooksy on the forums, and I'm playing my Dread Elves again. I changed up my list quite a bit from last time. I decided I wanted a fast element in the list, so I have a Dread Prince on a horse now. He has a 1-up, 3-up with the Cloak against shooting, Ogre Sword, and he's got the Potion of Swiftness to counter that Hardened Shield. I'm kind of really curious how he's going to do actually in this game, and how he's going to perform in general. I think he'll be okay. I feel like he could be hit or miss in some matchups, but generally because of speed, he should be able to pick on units where he can really do some damage with his D3 wounds. Still running a Cult Priest on a Divine Altar. I added the Bronze Breastplate, and I actually really like it. I think it's pretty solid for a model like that to get a 2-up for one phase. And then I'm still using Oracle and Alchemy. And then I dropped the small unit of Legionnaires and picked up 12 Repeater Auxiliaries. I don't really find Repeater Auxiliaries to be overall that effective, especially if you play against T4 armies. The Strength 3 shooting just doesn't really cut it. But I also wasn't finding the small unit of Legionnaires at the altar to be overall that effective. I like what it did with the Mage, and I like that it kind of gave me a small unit I could do stuff with, but it just wasn't doing anything. And then I dropped a Kraken, and I added a Raptor Chariot, and I did more stuff with the characters with those points. So I realized if you're playing with a Divine Altar, all the units should be able to benefit from it in your army. Otherwise, or your monsters are running on the flanks, which is okay. My opponent's list is similar to his last list. This is the same opponent from my last video. He changed up the BSB build, however, and this is actually the list I edited on the YouTube link, but it's not actually the list he played in that game. I mean, it's very close. He still has, the Tough Overlord with Onyx Hammer. He's got a 1-up, 4-up regen. He's got the BSB with the Ring of Desiccation, so he can always guarantee he's got that flammable on the enemy. And then he can use the Alchemy attribute from his Prophet to benefit his 2 Kadim blocks. So it's a really nice list. He's got 3 Chaffs with the 2 Wolf Riders and the Hobgoblin Chief, and just that big block in the middle. He added shields, which I think was a good call too, because it only cost him 4 Dwarves to put shields on the whole unit. So for magic, I got Quicksilver Lash, Word of Iron, Molten Copper, and Transmutation of Lead. And my opponent, instead of Molten Copper, he picked up the Silver Spear, I believe. Yes, yeah. Although we really don't get to it, unfortunately. This is the start of my deployment. I have Dark Riders on the right. There's a building in front of that bolt thrower on the paper. And then I have the 12 Repeater Auxiliaries, a Raptor Chariot, my Divine Altar with my block of Legionnaires, the Flaming Banner. And then you can see half the Harpies are in front of them. There's the other side of the Spearman block, and then my Executioners, they're in a water feature, but it doesn't really matter. They have the Strider Standard, that's a little piece of Impassable in front of the Bolt Thrower and the other Hunting Chariot, and my Dread Prince on his steed, and the other Dark Raiders. And then for my opponent's deployment, he's got his Wolf Riders, his 6 Kadim Incarnates, his 20 Hobgoblins, his big block of Core Warriors with all 3 of his characters in it, one of his Hobgoblin Bolt Throwers, and then his other unit of 20 Hobgoblins on the other side of that Bolt Thrower. And on the other side, we have his Pain Train, the Infernal Engine, as he likes to call it, and his another Hobgoblin Bolt Thrower, 5 more Goblin Riders, and his 5 Incarnates. Oh, and then there's a wolf behind the Pain Train. That's his Goblin Chief. This is my first Vanguard. I didn't want to, I couldn't really move up because the way he positioned. He actually Vanguarded his Wolf Riders first to that position, and then I Vanguarded there, as you can see. Yeah, he's playing a little bit defensive here. And then this is how I Vanguarded with my other Dark Raiders, and he didn't want to move his Wolf Rider. He was tempted to put it forward, but he felt like it would just get shot, and that's kind of how I agreed with him too. And then he actually pulled back his other unit of Wolf Riders. We played Counter Thrust scenario or deployment, and I had one more dropped in my opponent, so my opponent got to go first. He marches up with his big block 12 inches, because one of the things he also did with his new list is he put the speed banner on that unit, which is really cool, because then they triple march with movement 4, and they're actually faster than Elves, which is kind of crazy. And so he marches the big block up 12 inches, the full 12 inches, puts it right in the middle. He chaffs up my executioners with that Wolf Riders that were behind the impassable terrain, and he moves his incarnates quite up a bit too on my left flank there in front of the repeater auxiliaries. So very aggressive turn 1. In the magic phase, he gets one alchemy spell off, but it doesn't do anything. But he does get the attribute on this Raptor Chariot. And then his Pain Train shoots at the Raptor Chariot as well. He does 2 wounds, but I make a 6-up save, and he only does 1 wound with the D3 wounds. So fared pretty well in the shooting phase, actually. He shoots with his Hobgoblins, and he kills 1 Dark Raider here. At the start of Dread Elf turn 1, I also forgot to mention that he did. That's right. In the magic phase, he used Molten Copper. He gets a couple spells off, and he kills the rest of my Harpies between his magic and his shooting phase. So he gets rid of my chaff. So I'm kind of sitting there with, a lot of things free to charge. I had thought about charging one of the Raptor Chariots, the one on the left, into his Incarnates. It was, I think, 17. I could have got the reroll from the altar off. The Executioners are chaffed up by Wolf Riders. I decide to put all of these units into this block. The main block has the speed banner, so their movement 6. They were about 14 inches away, so they needed an 8. The Steam Tank is proxying as another Raptor Chariot, and it needed like a 12, and then the other Raptor Chariot needed a 17 to this block. So I put the reroll to charge on this unit, his big block of Cord Warriors, and we charge everything into it, and we make it with everything. I think I only needed to re-roll the Close Chariot, which is kind of humorous, actually. The Far Chariot rolled its 10 up or something like that to make the charge. So we put all these blocks in, and we got a big old combat turn 1. And then this is the rest of my movement. I back up my repeater crossbows, and I move my Dark Raiders over to shoot his Wolf Raiders. I also tried to charge my general into the flank. He needed a 9 on his horse, but he failed it. And then I moved some Dark Raiders on to his left, but a couple died from DT. In the magic phase, we get 5 dice to 3, and I throw 3 dice at Word of Iron on the spear block, and I was actually going for the buffed up version, the 9-up, and I failed it. I only rolled like a 2-1-1. So I don't get his spell scroll or anything. And in the shooting phase, I pick on these Hobgoblins to try and free up my Executioners for the future. And I believe the Dark Raiders do 1 wound, and then the Bolt Thrower does 4 wounds, but he makes 1 6-up or something. And they're alive. And my Repeaters and my all other Bolt Thrower did not do anything on the other side. And my Hunting Chariot hit, wounded, but he passed the sport save. And in combat, the champions of each unit get a challenge. I fluff my hits, and he kills my champion, just doing 1 wound. His Overlord pops the Potion of Swiftness and strikes at the same speed as the BSB. The BSB does 3 wounds to the unit. Impact hits do about, I think they do 8 wounds. I forgot, I rolled up 9 hits, did 8 wounds, and I actually forgot my +3 hits, which was crazy, but I still do 8 wounds. The Overlord hits and wounds 2 times, and I pass my 2 4-up ward saves. I used the Bronze Breastplate, but I didn't pass any armor saves. And then I strike with all the other higher initiative things. The Chariot Riders do 3 wounds from both chariots. The Spears do, I think, 7 or 8 wounds as well. I guess when it's all said and done, he strikes back at me with 13 dwarf attacks, his BSB and his prophet, and he does do it like 12 wounds back to me, but he's still down by 8, and he needs to roll double ones on his break test, and he does not, unfortunately. And I pursue with both the raptor chariots, and I catch him with both of them. One raptor chariot goes 11 inches into the incarnates, and the other raptor chariot goes 7 and is sitting right there. He only went 7 with his unit. And I reform my spears to look like this. And it is at this point, unfortunately, that my opponent decides he wants to call it, because it's just turn 1, and he already feels, oh, he lost half his army right there in that one combat phase from the 3 charges. So this is how it looks after combat, and this will be how it looks at the end of the game. So we call it because he loses BSB, loses general, and he lost his prophet as well. That big block is tough, but if you lose it, it's a lot of points. He still has about half his army left, but I've only lost my harpies at this point, and and some spears. The chariots didn't suffer any wounds in that combat. So if we played probably the rest of this game out, that left unit of incarnates could really pick on that bolt thrower and that unit of crossbows. I would probably just keep backing up, keep separating them, making it harder for him to catch both. The pain train can go into the spears or the raptor chariot. It might honestly be better for him to back up, because if he gets into the spears, they do have lethal strike, and I could get the altar blessing to reroll my wounds against it. It would take still a long time to kill it, but they'll whittle it down eventually. I have a raptor chariot then free to roam around and grab war machines or go into those hobgoblins, and I think that combat with the raptor chariot and the incarnates will also not go well for him. Incarnates are really better against small infantry models, maybe other monstrous infantry, but I don't think they really do against single targets as well. And that thing's T5, he's strength 5, he's sitting on 4s, wounding on 4s. I even have a 5 with armor save. I think he only gets 1 flame hit against him because it's models and base contact, so I think with all his attacks he does maybe 3 wounds. I do more wounds. So end of game, it's an Infernal Dwarf forfeit. We actually tied up the tally of the points for that block, and it's 2871. After you count the fact that his general and his BSB are in there. So it's a 20-0 for the Dread Elves. Felt good to actually get a victory, and then having a pretty bad slump actually lately. So that's the video, and thank you for watching and supporting this channel. Have a great day.